Welcome to the Anchor Your Retirement podcast. Happy 2025. I'm your host, Barbara Gullen, and with my co host, Tony Shore. Tony, I haven't seen you in like, what, 2.5, almost 3 weeks? Two at
Almost 3
least.
weeks, 2.5 basically,
Yeah.
almost 3, but, yeah, the holidays kinda took a bite out of our schedule there,
Yeah,
and I
that
decided to finally take some time off, Barbara. I
good
I
for
thought I could
you.
use it, right?
Good for you. But those midweek holidays, I mean, yesterday was like the biggest Thursday, Monday I think I've ever had in my life. How about you?
Oh, it was so much like Monday, and it was funny because it was my first day back in the office in almost
Mhm.
2 weeks, just under 2 weeks.
Oh, gosh.
And so I'd taken the whole Christmas week off and most of New Year's week off, but I went back into the office yesterday, which was Thursday, and everybody looked very tired. Nobody was saying a lot. It was kind of drag city is what I call it because people were kind of
Kinda like when the Chiefs or the Vikings play Sunday night football and everybody comes into the office the next day because they stayed up to watch the game.
exactly. Speaking of that, you stole my
Yes.
thunder. That was
Sorry.
going to be what I was going to talk about before we jump into our great financial topic, which you've got a good one for us today, Barb. So we'll get right into it. But first, picture this. Picture a
I'm picturing
Chiefs Vikings Super Bowl.
it could be.
It could happen.
Are we
It's
gonna have a friendly wager if that happens? I have the Chiefs earrings on today. I
You
don't know if you
do.
can
Oh,
see them
we'll
or
have a friendly wager. We'll have a friendly
not.
wager. Uh, I'll put up my car against your car. How about that?
No.
Anyway,
Didn't even have to think about that one.
I know. But what I'll do because I need a new car.
Yeah, but you could not drive my car in the snow up there.
Yeah, that's true. You have a sportier car than I do, but um, at any rate, it's either probably going, in my opinion, it's going to be the Lions or the Vikings versus the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. That's my opinion.
I would tend to agree with you on
Yeah,
that. We're resting most of our starters this
yeah,
week.
yeah.
They've already said Carson Wentz is going to be the starting quarterback. There are
It should be interesting.
well, and
I wish
there
we
are
were playing the. I wish we were playing the Chiefs this week instead of the Lions.
oh, we're playing the Broncos, and the Broncos are like a linchpin in whether or not several teams make it into the playoffs. It's the if this then that scenario.
Yeah.
And they were talking about it this morning that, both Miami and Cincinnati have a shot, I think, of getting in if the Broncos lose. If the Broncos win, I think they get the last wild card spot. I wasn't completely paying attention.
They're not that good though. So I think the Chiefs can beat them
Yeah,
even with
well,
a backup quarterback.
yeah. Now we have several of our first string players that, if they reach certain milestones like yards caught
Yes.
or that kind of thing, they have bonuses built into their contracts that if they sit this out for the regular
They will
season,
get some of them I heard about that.
some
Yeah.
of them are leaving like $750,000 on the table
Yeah, so
if
they
they
wanna play.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's
you know,
interesting.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's all going to be very, very interesting. I'm surprised. I guess it's because we're playing Denver. We have the afternoon game on Sunday. We are still getting more of a primetime spot, even though it's not really a pivotal game for the Chiefs. It is one for
Well,
Denver.
the biggest game on Sunday is the Vikings versus the Lions because
Mhm.
whoever wins the division, and whoever
Oh,
wins gets the
wow.
number 1 seed in the NFC for
And
play
gets the bye.
and gets the bye and the home field
Oh,
advantage.
wow.
So we're 14-2,
Uh-huh.
and, we've got 1 game up on the Lions right now, but or we're tied. I can't remember how that is. We're tied or we're 1 game up, but they beat us once already, so we've got to beat
Mhm.
them. We have to beat them to get
Or
the
they
number
get the
1,
tiebreaker.
or they get the tiebreaker and they'll win the division. And can you imagine a 14-3 team not winning their division. We have the best record of any one division ever in NFL history right now, because we have 3 teams that are in
Yes.
the playoffs: the Packers, the Vikings, and the Lions. It's a tough division, and they all have good records. So
Yeah, it is. I mean, it kind of makes you wish like the Jets were in your division.
it really, well, we have the
Or
Bears, so it's
the
close, but
Giants. The Bears, yeah.
the Bears aren't too good. The Jets, I wish they were in our division instead of Green Bay. It'd make things a lot easier. But
Well, the quarterback, they just traded quarterbacks. Anyway,
yeah,
um,
yeah, the quarterback. Enough said.
but
So,
let's talk about some non-predictions and surprises for 2025.
what do you mean by non-predictions, Barb?
Well, even the experts can't agree what the Fed is going to do. I have heard everything from one extreme. There was somebody out there saying that even though the mainstream thinks the Fed is only going to cut rates twice, they were predicting 5 interest rate cuts throughout 2025. And then yesterday, I heard another report that says inflation is going to tick back up and that we could actually see rate hikes in 2025.
Hmm.
All of that to say, nobody really knows what's going to happen.
Right. Nobody has a crystal ball, of course, but
No.
usually they have pretty good ideas of what might happen, but we are hearing conflicting reports.
Yeah, I mean the mainstream consensus is there will be like 1 or 2 rate cuts, which is why we had that big pullback at the end of 2024, because the market did not want to hear that the Fed wasn't going to be aggressively cutting rates next year.
Right. Yeah.
But the numbers don't show that they should be aggressively cutting rates next year.
Right. Yeah. The Fed, I think, they've shown that they really do know what they're doing. I mean, they managed to get inflation back down, or at least help do that. And, they did it maybe a little slower than people wanted, but yeah, I think if we see rate cuts, it's not going to be very many.
And as landings go, this is about the softest one I think we've ever seen.
Especially from that huge spike in inflation after our government printed up $6 trillion in COVID relief money and
Yes.
threw it out there. I mean, you can't have low. People are like, this inflation is terrible, the policies are bad. Well, the last 2 administrations, Trump and Biden, spent all this money on these relief bills because they had to restart our country's economy. But again, you can't print $6 or $7 trillion worth of money and put it out there and not see massive inflation.
You
In my opinion.
can't. And even though inflation is slowing down in some areas, it's still not slowing down at the grocery store. We're
No.
having another bout of avian flu. Eggs are back to being astronomically expensive again.
Yeah.
And that trickles into other food supplies, especially as this flu mutates and is starting to affect other species. So, chicken prices are going up, egg prices are going up. The grocery store inflation isn't included in core CPI.
Nope.
Which makes no sense to me.
No, it doesn't.
Because, I mean, you can't just tell the country, okay, guys, don't eat for a month and we'll see how we're doing with expenses.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. So, let's take out going to the movies. Let's take out something far more discretionary out of core CPI than food.
Yeah. It doesn't make any. That's never made sense to me. Is
No.
why the government's benchmark for inflation, the Consumer Price Index, doesn't include necessities like groceries. I mean, what it should include is necessities. That's what it should include.
Yes.
What it shouldn't include are entertainment and luxury items. If you want to leave that out, fine, because we can make decisions on that based on where we're at. But you can't make decisions based on food. I mean, you got to eat.
Right. And, for those of you who are drawing Social Security or getting a federal pension, you did get a small increase.
Yep.
In both of those this year. And for those of you who are state employees, first responders, or in the civil service retirement system from the federal government, the old system prior to the early 1980s, Congress finally passed a law at the end of December that gets rid of something called the windfall elimination provision. Did you hear about that?
I did. Explain to us what that is.
The windfall elimination provision was something that Congress put together saying that if you did not pay into the Social Security system, which most first responders don't, many state employees don't, and way back in the day, federal employees did not. They do now. If you had 40 qualifying quarters and you were eligible for Social Security, either through your own earnings or through your spouse's earnings, that when you got old enough to draw Social Security, they were going to take a look at what your pension was. And if you got a federal pension, they were going to proportionately reduce your federal pension and your Social Security benefit so that you still net got more money, but you didn't get the full benefit of each either. Okay. I have one client in particular who is CSRS in the old retirement system. And while she was working, she could draw her ex-husband's spousal Social Security benefit, and it went away as soon as she retired because of the windfall elimination provision. The only way you could avoid the windfall elimination provision before this legislation was to have 30 years of substantial work paying into Social Security.
Yeah.
Which basically meant you had to be working 2 jobs most of your life.
Yeah.
And, I know several first responders that have some sort of side hustle. The firefighters here are on for 24 hours and off for 48, which
Right.
makes doing some sort of second job a very viable option for them.
Yeah, it's the same here. Yeah, for most. Yeah.
So, this really impacted a lot of people positively. What it did impact negatively was the Social Security Trust Fund. And
Okay.
now Senator Rand Paul tried to add an amendment to this bill that was going to gradually increase the full retirement age for Social Security. However, that amendment got pulled from the final version of the bill.
Of course. But they're going to have to do something. They can't keep kicking the Social Security can down the road until there's no money in the Social Security.
We are less than 9 years away from insolvency with the Social Security system.
Right. Depleting the trust fund. So they're going to have to do something, which, they may raise the limit on, right now after what is it, 178,000 or 173,000, they stop taking out Social Security taxes out of your check. If you make 500,000 a year, if you're a wealthy person and make $1 million a year or more, or $500,000 or even 200,000, you're only paying Social Security on a portion of that. They may raise that, and they may raise the full retirement age to help as well. But
nobody's going to like hearing this, but we probably need to raise the full retirement age for Social Security.
Yeah.
When
I think they will.
when the ages for Social Security eligibility were first established, our average life expectancy as a nation was about 6 to 12 months beyond that Social Security eligibility age.
Right. Yeah.
Now
sometimes they paid people less than a year out, and then they were done because that person passed, right?
Or you had people like my dad who passed before they were eligible for Social Security, who paid into it all his life and never drew anything.
Right.
Now, some people start drawing it as early as age 62. Average life expectancy is 86.
Right.
More
and more people are living to 100 even. And if you make it to 65 and you're still doing well, the odds that you make it to 90 are that much greater nowadays. So
they are,
and
even more so. Yes, and even more so if you're married. when the Social Security system was established, we had 17 people paying in for every one person drawing out. We're now at about 1.5 people paying in for every one person drawing out. And that's not a sustainable business model any way you look at it.
No.
So, hopefully this Congress will step in and do some of the uncomfortable things.
Yeah.
I know there has been a lot of media attention given to what they think the new administration is going to do in terms of mandating returning to offices and reduction of the size of the federal government. For those of you that don't recall, they tried to do that back in, I want to say, the 80s, and it didn't work.
Right.
It's that uncertainty, I think, is rattling the market a little bit. The market doesn't like an unknown quantity. And when people who have that influential media position are saying and doing things off the cuff that have everybody scratching their head, we're not mentioning any names, Elon Musk.
Right.
Everybody does a double take.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things where, while I do still think we should have a decent 2025, I think we're going to have a bumpy start.
Sure. Yeah, there are some surprises and some things that kick in because some of the laws that were passed take effect this year that were
Yes.
pushed out. So, and that's what you're talking about. Now, the windfall, they've eliminated the
Right.
windfall elimination, right?
Which means that you are now eligible for your full Social Security benefit or for a spousal Social Security benefit that may have been eliminated because you had paid into a non-Social Security pension system.
So it really affects government workers.
Primarily.
Yeah. Yeah.
Primarily. There were a few pockets of the country, like counties, that elected to not pay into Social Security when they had the option to not do that before it was
Sure.
mandated.
Sure.
So we are talking about a long, long time ago. But, primarily the people that are going to be affected were government employees.
Sure.
You know that we work with a lot of government employees. And if you're listening to this and you've got questions, call our offices at area code 913-553-6222. Select the option for appointments and scheduling and let Amanda know that you have questions about the windfall elimination provision. She'll get you on the calendar either with myself or with one of our other qualified fiduciaries. They both happen to be either active or retired first responders and understand this very comprehensively.
Yeah, that's great, Barb. And I want to encourage all our listeners so they're not surprised in 2025 by things that are happening. And if they're retired, there are changes with Medicare and the prescription drug program. And I know the out-of-pocket ceiling has been lowered this year to $2,000 for Part Medicare, Part D prescription plans, but that means the premiums might go up. So there are some surprises you need to plan for. I would encourage all of our listeners out there, if they have questions about these things or investments or financial planning and retirement planning, to pick up the phone, Barb, give you a call. I know you love hearing from people. Set up an appointment, like you say. Yeah.
I do. I mean, there are people that have questions about crypto. I mean, we saw Bitcoin have a tremendous run up over the last 2 years, year and a half to 2 years.
Yep.
There are just so many unknowns. The provisions that were passed during the first Trump administration for the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act right now are scheduled to sunset at the end of 2025. We don't know if the Trump administration coming back in is going to mean that these tax cuts are extended. There's been talk of, quote unquote, making them permanent. There's a lot of variables going on right now that we're doing our best to keep up with.
Yeah.
But the financial landscape is changing, and it's changing quickly.
Yeah. It really is. Well, Barb, great show today. Great information. Let our listeners know one more time how they can set up an appointment to if they have any questions.
Sure, they can either go to our website, anchoryourretirement.com, or you can call our offices at area code 913-553-6222. And we'll be glad to assist you, get you on the calendar with one of our qualified fiduciaries, and help you chart your course for the retirement that you're hoping to have.
All right. Well, Barb, hopefully we'll all have a happy new year and things will
Yes.
go smoothly. And we'll see. We'll be talking about it each and every week here on the show. Barb, great show. Listeners and viewers, thanks for tuning in. That does it for today's episode of Anchor Your Retirement with our host, Barb Gullen.
We'll see you soon.